What's going on? My name is Matt Parker, and today it's my absolute pleasure to be checking out this stunning 1976 Gibson Grabber G3 from my friends at Vintage Bass Room. But before we get started with today's video, please remember to like and subscribe as it really helps me grow this YouTube channel. Right, let's get back to today's video. So launched in 1975, the Gibson G3 was the second edition of the Grabber, but with some key feature differences which differentiate it from the original Grabber model. One of the first noticeable differences is that this bass features 3 individual single coil pickups. Now, these were designed by Bill Lawrence, who during the 70s was kind of a predominant figure in Gibson's electronics. So he came up with things such as the Ripper pickups, the RD and RD Artist pickups, and a couple of these circuit board pickups in the guitars as well. Now, the Gibson G3 has a very distinctive sonic character thanks to these 3 pickups, and the wiring in particular means that it has some really interesting tones. Now, with the pickup selector pointing up, you've got the neck and the middle out of phase, which gives you a kind of humbucking effect. Flicking it to the back, we've got the middle and the bridge. Now, one of the most interesting tonal things with the G3 is when you have it in the center position, this activates all 3 pickups at the same time. What this does is give the Gibson G3 a really distinctive tonal character. People refer to this as the buck-and-a-half sound. It gives you a really wide range with kind of a little bit of extra top. It almost in some ways sounds active, but it's a really cool sonic character, which you can kind of only get from 3 pickup instruments. And in particular, the wiring of the G3 means that you get like a really interesting sound. And that is probably my favorite tonal setting on this bass. Now, the G3 came in 2 different bodywoods. You either had a maple body or an alder body, depending on which finish the bass came with. And I believe it was the natural satin finishers which were the alder bodies. This particular example would have been ebony from factory. It's still got a bit of paint retained behind the neck plate, and as such, that means this one's a maple body with a matching maple neck and fingerboard. What that gives you is a very bright, snappy initial attack. It's quite a bright sounding bass anyway, and some of that is certainly down to the maple construction with a bolt-on neck. Taking a look at the bridge, we can see this has got a very standardized looking bridge, but it's actually a string through body. Taking a look at the back, you can see the ball ends are here. What that does is it gives you a much steeper break angle through the body and certainly helps with sustain. And then taking a look at the controls, we've just got cymbal volume and tone, and then this 3-way switch as mentioned earlier. So moving over to the headstock, you can see the headstock shape is actually a flying V headstock shape, and then that's mated to a 2+2 headstock design. Unlike a lot of Gibsons of this era, it's actually a silkscreen logo on that clear maple finish. And then moving down to the nut, we've got a 1 5/8 inch or 41.25 mil, and then that's mated to a 12-inch fingerboard radius with a maple neck. Now, as mentioned before, nuts around 41 mil, kind of put it in between a jazz and a P. It's slightly more towards P, but it's quite a comfy neck. If you were to put me on the spot, I would say that it's probably a D profile. It feels like the shoulder drops off a little bit, and then it gradually tapers up to a fairly substantial handful past the 12th fret, but again, nothing massively cumbersome. You see some absolutely lovely wear on the fingerboard on this example. You can tell someone's loved playing it, and it feels great. So flipping the neck over, you can see, as mentioned earlier, it's got this 2+2 headstock design. The machine heads are these kind of like stubby shafted Schala units, which are period correct for Gibsons of this era. And having a look at the back of the neck, you can see it's a scarf jointed neck. This particular era of Gibson is when they were kind of doing slightly different manufacturing techniques as to what we'd expect from kind of a traditional Gibson. And that also means that we've got this quite prominent neck plate here, which again is not something we see a lot on Gibson. They do have some models which are obviously bolt-on, this being one of them. And taking a look, you can see it's got this really nice kind of engraved Gibson logo as well. Now, the body of the G3 is actually surprisingly contoured. It's very thin, which means you can kind of hug the bass very close. And because of that thinness, it's actually not too heavy for a maple body bass. Right, so I know why you're all here. Let's get down to some tones. Today I'm using my Ashdown LB30 all-valve head. I've set the controls flat, and I think this is a really cool vintage-inspired all-valve head, which really suits the G3. So there we have it, the 1976 Gibson Grabber G3. Now, I think these sound absolutely phenomenal. It's probably one of the best sounding Gibsons from the 70s, in my opinion. Now, tonally, I really, really like the G3. I think this pickup option is quite unique, certainly from the 70s. We don't see many other basses with 3 pickups and then the 1.5 wiring configuration. And for that reason, I think that the G3 is probably one of the sleeper basses from Gibson in the 70s. Now, the timing of this video is perfect because Epiphone have finally announced the Mike Dirnt signature Epiphone G3. Now, because there's renewed interest in the G3 market, I actually think vintage prices are going to increase as more and more people become aware of them. Currently, Gibsons, in my opinion, are like the sleeper vintage basses. They're not commanding the premiums of Fenders at the moment, but they still offer a really unique and awesome vintage playing experience. And I think now is the time to strike before I can see the prices going up too much. Now, I really, really like this bass. As I said, I think it sounds phenomenal. That being said, there are a couple of minor niggles. Obviously, this particular example is a refin, so it isn't going to command the same premium as a pristine factory original model. And again, on this particular example, the E machine head is very slightly bent. It's still totally functional. It feels fine, but it's just something to note if you are looking at this bass as a prospective buyer. There we have it, a quick overview of the 1976 Gibson G3. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is the G3 the coolest Gibson they've ever made, or is it something that you would just never play? If you've enjoyed this video, please think about liking and subscribing. It really helps me grow this YouTube channel, and it's been super fun hanging out today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, I've been Matt Parker. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.